Good morning and welcome to Absa Artworks, a 4-part series where we introduce you to the world, the fascinating world of the visual arts, and how to go about building up an investment portfolio of artworks. I'm Dr. Paul Bayliss, Absa Senior Specialist Art Curator. Today is the 3rd episode in the series, and I am once again extremely excited with the lineup that we have today. We're going to be focusing on how to manage your art collection as an investment. We're also going to be looking at the important topic of how to frame your artwork. And yet again, I'm joined by a number of exciting guests. One of the exciting things about working in the visual arts, and I mentioned this last week, is the people you get to meet and the places one has the opportunity of seeing. Today, we are live streaming from the artist studio of Legonolo Mashaba from Doornfontein in Johannesburg. And I must tell you how exciting it is to be in the space of creativity and to see the mechanics and gain insight into his personal space. Because it's not always just about the artwork. It's about the artist behind the artwork. Please remember that if you have any questions, scroll down on the screen page until you see the Slido tab and post your questions there, and we will try to address them through this morning's talk. Now to the exciting bit. Let me introduce you to my 2 in-studio guests. Firstly, Legonolo Mashaba is a Johannesburg-based artist with extensive background in printmaking. He obtained his certificate in design and printmaking in 2004 from the Artist Proof Studio in Johannesburg, and he specializes in intaglio, relief, monotype, and silkscreen. And you're going to be asking, what is that? Well, we're going to be putting Legonolo on the spot just now, and he's going to be telling us a bit about these printing styles and types. Our second guest needs no introduction. She's one of the most recognized media personalities in South Africa. She's both a television and radio presenter, actress, and momtrepreneur. She's also highly influential in the social media and uses her talent for good and to spread positivity. That is no other than Ilana Africa Breedenkamp. So to my guest, Ilana, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. And I should say thanks for having me because this is your home.
Oh, it's a pleasure hosting you all.
Oh, thank you.
Good to be here, Legonolo, and I know we've sort of invaded your personal space, but as I said, it's always good to see the artist and the space behind the artwork, because for me, that also gives a sense of who you are. So thank you very much.
Yeah, welcome to the heart of everything. Yeah, it's a privilege for me to share my space, to get to see the rawness of the space. Because I hardly ever have people here in my space. So after lockdown, it's quite nice to welcome people to come see it.
And Ilana, I have to ask you, so I've never seen that word before. And maybe just to mention, you are never too old to learn new things. Momtrepreneur?
So I coined this phrase only because people think that when you become a parent, you don't have to work sometimes when you're a mom. So I was like, okay, so I'm a mom and I work really hard. I work all the time. So I'm a momtrepreneur. And sometimes I'm shorten it to mompreneur. So I'm someone who believes in local business. I'm someone who believes in local art. I'm so proud to be here today. I'm very excited. And yeah, I'm a mom. So I'm a mompreneur.
Fantastic. And I think that's one of the things that we've also tried to bring through this, the series. So often we look at the talent that is in America, Europe, and Asia. But we need to, as South Africans, start celebrating our homegrown talent, because like Legonolo and many other artists in South Africa, we've got a wealth of talent that can really stand head and shoulders amongst the best in the world.
I think what he just mentioned is also really important. I mean, we shouldn't forget that we've just been in lockdown. The fact that we are a small team of people that are welcomed like this into your home is so significant, where we point again to local talent, the fact that it's available. We know that over the weekend there was a small art exhibition
Yeah,
here.
there was an open studio here to welcome a lot of people to come view the space. So each artist had their own sort of an exhibit. And what's interesting about it, each and every artist here is unique. We all have our different talents. So it's like going to a smaller affair, a fair where people can just come, engage with other people and go to different floors and have a small space where you can just look at all the artists who are around and engage with them, because people never got that opportunity to engage with artists. We never got to go to exhibitions throughout this year, I think, if I'm correct. So it's quite nice we have those opportunities where people can just come and put ourselves on a map as well and say, hey, we are here, we are still making art.
Maybe just to mention, because we said we're in Doornfontein, but the place we're actually in is Ellis House. I mean, Lekonolo, how many artists are in the space?
I presume about 25. It's 5 floors. On second floor, there's most artists are on this floor, this particular floor. That's where everything is. Each floor, there's about 5, a standard of 5, but this particular one is about 11, if I'm correct. There's painting, there's sculptures, there's someone who does furniture as well here. And some people would have families. I lived here with my family for a short period of time. Sometimes they would work on my drawings, on their own drawings at times. So yeah, we are starting to become a community, but we are all secluded. Hence, I don't know the specific number of how many people are here.
And I think, that's so important. We mentioned that in our discussions in the first webinar, where we said one of the things is you need to get out and explore the industry, go to galleries, but as important, keep your eyes open for open studio visits like they've just had, because that's where you get to see the heart and feel almost the pulse. I mean, Ilana, for you to be in this space?
For me to be here, I feel very, very lucky. First of all, from a health point of view, from a buying local point of view. I mean, what's interesting as someone that works in media? So most of the time we get to write or talk about people or about artists in South Africa. There's so much available or encyclopedias or Wikipedias available when we need information about something. But when it comes to our local art, there's not much written about our local artists. And it's almost like I'm lucky enough to be here to also want to make a difference and say, not only do we need to talk or blog more or write about this or talk more or even buy more, but we should be writing more about our local artists. I mean, I saw your latest video that's online, together with the UJ choir singing, and it was fascinating to see. And it's almost like you want more of it, because there's a minute of you drawing and then you go, okay, now where's the next one? And then you realize there isn't one, So I feel really lucky being here. Like Lehlogonolo has mentioned, this is not just a space where he gets to draw, but this is his home, and I wish you could experience it. So to give you an idea, because I think this is how I will explain where I'm at, the temperature in here is a lot different than outside, okay? It's almost like the art is being looked after first. Like, never mind the people and the aircon, okay? Yeah. It's almost like you gain a certain respect walking into someone's home. Like when you go back home to Auntie Ne?
Oh, yeah?
But like when I walk in here, it's almost like I don't want to just carry water, because I realize that there's also ink, pencils, drawings, paper, and things that are significant. So I'm not going to ruin anything when I'm here. And then there's a next level of like, someone was in here in lockdown, spending a lot of time here, conjuring up creativity in order to create, And as a mom entrepreneur, someone who creates, we have little people and we make things. It's such a privilege, So it's very special.
And we've got first insight into what he has been doing through lockdown.
Oh yeah, that video at UJ, actually, it was a whole day video. One of the fastest painting I've ever done in my life, actually, because usually, you know me, Paul. I take a long time to deliver. I've worked with Paul in the past where we have to make an exhibition, because everything, all these details, they take a long time. Everything is drawn by pencil, by pen, then you come back and paint. So my work is sort of structured. There's a bit of I think, in the architectural sense, so I have to draw everything one by one, then I have to go back another day. So that in that particular video, like, okay, today I'm going to be loose. I'll have a camera and have a stop motion of the whole thing. Let's just get myself out there. It turns out, yeah, that's also one of the things I've had, and I think I'll have to cultivate that in the future, going, working with the brush and actually paint on the drawing instead of being rigid with the pencil all the time. Yeah.
Well, we're going to have an opportunity shortly where Lekonolo is going to take us through some of the mechanics of how he constructs his work. As mentioned in our previous episodes as well, as part of the Absa Artworks series, I've selected my choice artists for 2020. And as we've mentioned, we have such a rich talent of visual artists across South Africa and even across this continent that it's just impossible to include everyone into that list that I would have liked. But the work selected that I've put into this catalogue are artists that I would definitely suggest that you include into your collection. I would like to encourage you by supporting these artists, by investing in their artworks, and all the proceeds from the sale of these works will go back to the artist. So our next artist that we are going to be introduced from this catalogue is Dikembele Ginambi, and let's just see his video and be introduced to him.
My name is Dikembele Ginambi. I'm a Cape Town-based artist. I can define my work as figurative expression, as it deals with figures. It's about human beings dealing with their social, spiritual, political, and physical challenges in their lives. The work reflects my own real life and how I deal with my own challenges, and how I solve my own problems socially, spiritually, and physically. I'm inspired by dance, music, theatre, and films. Conceptual-wise, there is always one object placed in a particular landscape where I cast my characters or figures around it. I always name these central objects. It is through this composition that I am able to build a conceptual narrative. I am currently working on a project called the Masters Unexplored Library. The Masters Unexplored Library is an artwork I created using the bits and pieces of objects from many of my iconic works. By cutting and pasting these images, I was trying to illustrate the importance of material and how without this material a project would not be possible. I call this process first thought. First thought is based on the origin and the actual spark of an idea before one researches and executes it as a project. It is about using the idea as raw as possible. This forces one to rely more on the capability of thinking in order to capture moving images in the mind. In this process, ideas written or sketched down are already secondary and exhausted, as they change form when one rewrites or sketches them on a piece of paper. For example, when I create a painting, I regard the process as first thought, as it is in motion and fresh in the mind while I am in the creation process. When the painting is done, it is no longer in motion, but it is frozen in time it is history, while a thought process is now or ongoing.
Thank you, Dikembule. And I really, really love his artwork. I mean, he draws upon the traditions of both sort of the 19th century European Romanticism and the 20th century Soviet art to create a style that is entirely his own. And then through that, he brings in that sort of political commentary without any sort of propaganda attached to it. So really a unique style, a unique African style, if I can call it as such, that he's made his own. We're now at one of the work tables within Legonolo's studio, and this is now where we really get to the meat of it, if I can call it that. And Legonolo, can you tell us what we're looking at here?
All right, I don't know where to start, but you see what you have here, these are papers. These are all papers. They're all cut by hand. What happened is I would draw directly on the paper.
Hang on, I'm going to interrupt you here, because I'm sure Ilana's going to be asking the same question.
By step,
I mean, how...
by step.
So can I hold this up? Just so people can... I mean, how do you cut this? By
That
hand?
is tiny, tiny. So do you do the drawing first? Can I pick this up?
Yeah, you may.
Okay, so this is the drawing. So this is now the hand.
Yeah.
And then with teeny tiny...
This is the blade. This is the blade that
with
I'm
the
using, by
blade,
the way.
the size of...
Well, it's about what? It's about a centimeter,
Meter.
you know. That's just this area here. That's all that I'm using here. Yeah. Then from there, I would like spray it. This is how I add color onto it. So a lot of people would ask me, how did you do that? I'm like, okay, this is all paper. It's easy to manipulate paper. Still, I was not trained to do all of this digitally on the computer. I was like, okay, since my work is slightly about, depicting technology. I'm using technology to draw, but always going back to the traditional sense of things. Then I was like, okay, let me just do all of this by hand. So this is me being the machine doing mechanical work. So the whole mechanism is all done by hand.
We need to take a step back here, because I mean, it's easier for us to visualize when you're looking at it here.
Yeah.
But how do you start off with a blank sheet of paper, literally. How do you come up with the concept from almost a blank sheet of paper, like we've got?
Okay, that's a vinyl.
That's different,
Yeah, but this just, blank sheet, to almost this layering, multicolors, gaps within the work. How do you know where to then put your gaps? And then, because it then gets layered on top of each other, I mean, this is almost we can see the basis of a face and things like that.
Yeah.
And then you layer in it on top. How do you proceed?
It's a good thing I have these at the back. So these prints are at the back, they're all done through this thing. So what happens is there are negative areas. These are the negative areas that I omit. I omit the negative areas from the vinyl. Then I ink it. From inking this, I would have a print. From a print, I would cut out these negative areas again. Then I have it. That's actually how this style began.
So
it began from printmaking.
So you almost working on positive and negative
Positive and negative, positive and negative. And all of these were just layered, a lot of text in such a way that it's no longer legible, it's not conceivable. And think about the geography, the planographic sense, how the landscape is. So I'm making portraits of figures, thinking around architecture and landscape as well.
But now, I noticed something walking in, and to give you an idea, when you walk into Legonolo's studio, which is also his home, he has draped it with some of his work from the beginning that I can see right to the end of this beautiful corridor. And I did ask you, because in the beginning of the corridor, there's one that's a figure, and I have to say a scrawny figure. So the reason I say this is because you're quite petite in figure. Yeah. I mean, I'm short, but you're petite. So I see you right at the beginning. Yeah. And then on the other side is what I see significantly in your work, this whole idea of sea urchins. You know, I'm a Cape Townian by heart, so I see sea urchins and a lot of astronomy almost, and also faces, but the layers, these layers, I'm going to pick them up, can I?
Yeah, you may. Yeah.
So it's all of these colors All right, but they're all layered, so
All
there'll
in
be
different
there'll be
places.
faces layered with this texture and color, all right, and the shape of sea urchins and the shape of almost mushrooms. I saw
Mushrooms as well,
mushrooms, and how do you know even where to start?
Oh no, I'm like you.
That's the question, you know. I mean, we can see it here, but it's where you do the creativity to actually start from a blank slate.
No, I was telling one of the crew members who told me that there's a friend of his who's an artist in a past primary school. So what I mentioned is I am like everyone else. What happens is the brain. You take that information into your hand. It's like writing with your left. You have to practice. Then eventually you see the product. It's like you manifesting the product. Then from there, I learn about the actual artwork as everybody else. So it's all a surprise. It's all a maze. And all of this is like a puzzle to me. Some of these pieces, I've been cutting them from 2016. These are the remains of the pieces that didn't work, to answer your question. Because what would happen is I would spend a lot of time just cutting this thing, and you put it there. The composition doesn't work. I'll have to cut another one.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, I have to do another one until I figure it out. So there's a lot of shifting and moving
So maybe
until
just
I get
to
it right.
ask as well, I mean, so people understand a bit of the process. Do you work on one particular piece and take it from start to end? Or do you work on a number of pieces? So you might be working at this workbench and then you move to another workbench and work on something else and then come back here, just in terms of your process.
I can never work on one. It will be boring. So boring. So yeah, I think I have 28 artworks I'm working on right now.
Really? 28?
So it's drawing. I move from the thing is I do a lot of processes, techniques. So some people they focus on just oil painting. So each and every technique you have to be a master of it. So I do printmaking. In printmaking, there's lithography, there's lino, there's etching. All of those, they are like techniques on their own, which you could specialize in. So it just so happens I specialize in lino. I like lino, which is at the back.
Yeah.
Then I would move and paint on this thing. This is like 2014 painting.
If I can just interrupt you there, Lekgonolo, because one of the questions I know we would be asked is, what is lino print? What is a screen print? Because we mentioned those in the beginning, and an intaglio print. You know, could you maybe just briefly explain?
All right, intaglio. Okay. Oh, these terms I won't be able to to tell you because even for artists, it's very difficult to understand those terms. You have to see it. And so this is actually just a normal. It's like rubber. It's like plastic. I drew with a marker here. Then I take the scooping tools, they are somewhere here, unfortunately. Then I would carve directly into that. So we call this a lino, it's a relief. We call it a relief. That's actually that print over
That's
here.
how you create it. So this is my favorite, only because it creates the texture. So he explained to me, and then how do you roll the ink?
Okay, you apply your ink. Let's pretend this thing has ink.
You've now carved.
Apply
You've
ink.
carved.
I've carved all the protruding areas that she understands much
Yeah,
better
yeah.
now. So pretend this is ink all over. Then I would apply the ink onto this vinyl. From here, I'll put the paper. It's like a bed here. I would put it in the center, the paper on top, then the roller. A press would exert pressure onto that, then that print will be printed onto the paper. Silk screen would be, I can't describe it.
But
it's
I think
very difficult.
we're also dealing with one of the questions that have come up as well is
I'm going to cover that for you.
the different types or mediums that we have in art. And you don't always need and expend a lot of money to invest.
Yeah.
You know, I know when I started building up my collection, one of the things I started looking at was print work.
Yeah.
You know, because it is slightly more affordable. And the reason for that is because an artist can make more copies of that work. So a print might be an edition of 10 or 15. Some of the editions might be 5, and some might be a lot more. So it allows the artist to make 15 or 10 editions of one particular work. And doesn't mean the work is any less important. The one thing that is important when you acquire that particular work is that the artist has signed it, and they have indicated the edition number somewhere on that print. So they would generally write at the bottom 1 of 10 or 2 of 10, and the signature would then be there. So, and it's one way of actually building up your collection is by initially getting printworks, screenworks, silk screen into your collection. So just to bear that in mind. One last question before we go into our next video, Legonolo. What is your creativity? What drives you?
All right. As you can see, this is meticulous. It drives me. I think I have an urge to want to create something that is different, something that is original. This is me speaking about myself. And I don't like to be like anybody else. So my drive is to be able to create something and put it out there to the world and say, hey, behold, this is something magnificent. It's been done at this particular time by this artist. So that is my motivation, if I may put it that way. To putting myself out there and doing something that is significant, that is different. This is my language. Yeah.
And we can, in that sense, read it very, and I think that is important. Art is a language, and it's how you also learn it. Because like any language, to be able to speak it, you need to learn it. And the same with art. For you to be able to understand it and appreciate it, do your homework, delve into it, get to know it, get to feel it, get to meet the artists. And that leads us to our next video. So the next artist I would like to introduce you to, for my pick of 2020, is Johan Stegman.
Hello everyone, welcome to my studio. My name is Johan Stegman. I'm an artist. I work mostly with 2D media. I work with etchings and charcoal drawings. This is basically my canvas, or the page that I draw on is actually this copper plate. So instead of pens, we actually use needles. And I draw by actually scratching the hard ground layer away, scratching it off the plate, exposing the metal, the copper. I was studying mechanical engineering in Pretoria University, and I realized that I have to have some art in my life. So I went to basically just do art classes, something that would force me to draw every week. I use a tissue paper to diffuse the light so that you can see more clearly when you draw. Otherwise, your two eyes actually start to compete with one another with the direct light. So diffused light makes it the easiest. And the woman who was giving these classes was actually a really good, interesting artist, Stella Olivier, and she introduced me to her husband, Louis Olivier, who was the first people I ever met who were making a living out of art. So if you take this plate and you dip it in acid, then it actually eats everywhere into the metal where you exposed it. So you're etching the line into the plate. If you then remove the wax layer and you apply some ink and you wipe that ink off, the ink stays behind in the lines. You put that with a paper on top through a printing press, and the ink gets transferred onto the paper and you end up with something like this. So this is the line proof, and then we apply a second process to the same plate to get the different tones. So this is actually the copper plate for that drawing. So they had a big effect on me, and I started working in his studio with all the spare time I had. And eventually through Louis, I started working for William Kentridge, and I got to know the whole city centre of Joburg and the whole art scene, and that kind of changed my life. And I decided to move to the city centre and pursue an art career. Eventually I was able to quit my job working as an engineer, and now I work full-time at a bronze foundry. That's Louis Olivier's company, and all my spare time I obviously work on my own work. it was a kind of a stream of consciousness kind of work where I started with a compelling image and I just started drawing it, and as I draw it I added some more things, and a kind of story unfolded that I didn't know would necessarily be there. So it started with photos that I took of this beautiful farmhouse in the Western Cape, and there was this barn, and there were all this random things in the barn that was pulled out and was strewn across the space, and like this boat and this motorcycle was really there, but this cannon was actually a fented trailer, and as I was drawing it, it became a cannon. Eventually I added these strange characters and a whole kind of story unfolded, and basically became this work. So that's a basic idea of how I create my etchings. Cut.
Now, art comes in many different forms. And one of the things that, is important to bear in mind is as you begin to invest and buy art and build up your collection, it's not just about buying artwork that you're going to make lots of money from. It's about the most important thing. And I've always said, acquiring an artwork is like a marriage. There has to be a relationship between yourself and that work. If there's no relationship, why would you want that artwork hanging on your wall? Because you're going to have to live with it. You're going to have to look at it year upon year. And as I said, art comes in many different forms. And probably one of the most cherished works we will have, particularly as parents. And the work is not unlikely going to make millions or thousands or even hundreds of rands, but is work that our children produce. And Ilana, you brought some of the work with you this morning from your kids.
You know why I brought them along? Because I realized that just like Lehlogonolo journeys with the work that he creates, that in lockdown, a lot has happened for most of us in order to project or feel. And when I asked my little girl to draw self-portraits in lockdown, the black and white drawings is what she made, and that's what she produced. And it was quite interesting to see how she sees herself. Yeah, big eyes, a lot of feelings, a lot of love, and then even some tears in one of the pictures. So obviously a little bit of sadness as well, as you can see there. So I think the camera's on it as well, Paul. But some of the other things that I brought along was I never thought that they'd actually have a recollection of what is before or after lockdown. But I got the spiel yesterday, Mommy, I did that before lockdown when I was 4. Ooh, and this is what I did after lockdown when I was 5. So they understand that time has passed. And that's one of the things I asked our artist, Lehlogonolo, today. I said to him, a digital world, or as a broadcaster, a mom, a business owner, we become very impatient when it comes to our wealth. If you want a good wine, you want it now. If you want a dress or fashion, you want it now. How long does it take you to create a work?
That piece behind Paul there, 6 years, I think.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's the oldest I have. But usually it's about, a week, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It takes a long time.
But you see what I mean? Like, we almost become spoiled for choice that the things that we want, that we think is valuable, has to happen now. And even in my children's work, I can see that it wasn't immediate. It was something that happened over a long period of time. Also, a friend of mine taught me something interesting recently. He's a jewelry designer. And I said to him, where do you think jewelry design and our art will go out of lockdown? He says, it's interesting. In a pandemic, when we come out of it, we want to show people what we have.
Oh, yes.
So we start wearing our diamonds again, and we start wearing our gold, and he thinks that trend will become trendy again, where we start hanging out the jewels,
And taking the best suit out the closet because, it sits in the best shoes. I now know when I go out, I make sure I'm dressed up and I'm wearing the best,
it's an
deodorant.
event.
And
Every moment's an event now.
It is an event. And it's in the journey that you...
But before the pandemic, you would have locked it away, right?
Correct.
You would have gone, this is too valuable to wear or to even hang out.
Keeping it for
a special occasion.
I want to go back to these works as well,
Right.
because they are important in a sense, because in 20 years' time, as your kids get older and we get a bit more grayer and some of us lose our hair and so on, these works become reflection that they can then relate back as a memory to where they were. Because often we forget the hardships that we go through in life. So it is important that, and to say to you, yes, your kids' pictures and that, put them away and keep them for future. Because even your kids are going to forget that they've actually produced this. And in 20 years' time, what better gift but to pull them out? And now the question you might say, but Paul, how do I store them?
Right.
And the best is, because we know that the kids haven't done them on archival paper and all of that, I mean, they've just been done in the classroom or at home and that, is to take them and put them, you can pack them together, but individually separate them with tissue paper.
Right.
So really just get tissue paper, because that will sort of absorb the moisture. You can then put them into an envelope, as we've got here, and just get up. So, I mean, Ilana did bring it in a nice envelope, and she was, themselves nicely decorated. But you can put it in an envelope between tissue paper, and then put it towards the back of the cupboard. Don't put it in the garage in a trunk where it's going to gather dust.
And definitely not under the bed.
Not under the bed?
Yeah.
Right.
No.
Why not under the bed?
Mattress and everything up. The mold.
Moisture.
You can get the
Yeah.
mold,
Okay.
the moisture and
Put
everything.
them-
Something happens there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Put them in a dry place, and in the back of the cupboard. And you will find, if you come back in a number of years' time, you'll be able to pull them out, and they're going to look as what they were. And what a cherished memory to give back to your kids.
Yeah.
And thank you. Yes, they are very, very special. And like we said, emotions go into them. You said something earlier that I attached to. You said that your work is you,
Yeah.
So it's a real privilege to know that I get to see a little bit of their hearts as well, especially when they can't explain it. So.
Now, you mentioned something interesting, Ilan, and I know and I don't know how many people actually know this. I mean, this is one of the things as well we get is, you're actually a winemaker. Am I correct?
So I'm a hobbyist winemaker. It's something that I enjoy.
You didn't bring any along today. I noticed
what?
that.
So I was going to bring you a little gift, and then I thought, you know what? I'm going to the artist's house. Let me not overshadow him with my own talents.
I wouldn't have minded. These things go well together.
I'll send you guys some. I have your addresses, okay, Ella's house. So, but you know what? It happened when I was younger. No one was ever younger than me. But when I was younger, I lived in Joburg and I was going to move to Cape Town. And I made a promise. I said to myself, the two hobbies that I'm going to take on, I'm going to play golf and make wine. And the year that we made our first one was 2012, and we won a prize for it. And we were very shocked, obviously, because I'm not a winemaker. I didn't train as one. But we won a prize that year for the best Shiraz, and we won a Michelangelo Award. Wow. And then we went on to make another one, and she's in storage at the moment. And I say it's she because we couldn't bring it out this year because of lockdown. And so we'll bring it out next year. But it's bottled, it's just not labeled. And yeah, I make Shiraz.
But your winemaking is focused on Shiraz.
Yes, there's a reason for that.
Please share.
I think as an artist, I am scared of the unknown.
Yeah, as we all are.
Yeah. I think I'm scared of the unknown. I know that I can taste a good red wine, but there is no way that I would make a white wine.
So what would pull you out of your comfort zone to get you to experiment with beyond just a Shiraz?
Lockdown and belief. Because lockdown brought a lot of emotions to the fore, right? And we go, okay, maybe I should just take more chances and challenge myself. And I think belief, I really believe that everyone who's commenting on our feed at the moment and everyone that's clicking on our feed, if they can see how much time and effort goes into creating and making something, people will support and buy more local. And I think that is not a pat on the back. I think we should, because it's your talent, But if we have that kind of support where we know that we're making this for people and they're supporting us, I think we'll make more of it.
And Lechanolo, for yourself, because it's almost similar to you. I mean, you would have initially focused on your Shiraz, if I can call it that, but you've had to evolve and grow as an artist and also put yourself out there into other spaces.
Yeah, like doing a video. Oh, this video that she's been commenting about. Oh my goodness, yeah. I had to spend like hours just recording myself, recording. It's not a comfort zone for me. So yeah, and I did a little bit of digital printing. I've been wanting to focus on the traditional way of drawing and all of that. And I figured there are ways that you can collaborate with people. You know, there's someone who actually put in work to get this thing, these colors to shine the way they shine and blow it up. That's not my expertise. So from there, I'll go further and do laser cutting and sculpture and stuff like that. So that's in the pipeline. Something I'm going to release next year.
That's also so important because when you start looking at artists, is to look at how does an artist grow and evolve. And I've been fortunate. I've known Legonolo for many years. And one of those is been able to see how your work has evolved and grown, and I don't use the word mature because that's not it, but it's just evolved, and you've kept all the time pushing the boundary in your work. I mean, now you're using a lot more color and a lot more boldness through your work that wasn't there 10 years back.
No, I think with the color, first of all, as a printer, you saw those prints, black and white. I think in black and white, then there was a surge of inspiration right now and say, you know what, let me just get out of my comfort zone and just add these colors, just do them as they are. Because there was no one who was rushing me to deliver anything during lockdown. There were no deadlines. I was not doing anything for anyone, no project. So it was just about myself in my own space, listening to myself, listening to each and everything that I have to do as an artist like myself, and just express it. And just it turned out very well. I'm happy.
And that's one of the things to, if you are looking at, not if you are, when you start building up your collection, is look at the journey that the artist has taken. Look that they have evolved and that they continue to grow and push the boundaries through the work, because that becomes so important as well in terms of an artist. But at the same time, and we see it in Legonolo's works, the technique is pristine. Technically, that work remains strong. It even gets stronger and stronger. You bring in almost perfection to perfection, but you are evolving. And that becomes important when you look at an artist and you're looking at their journey. Now, Ilana, I believe you've also, and I'm going to just turn it onto this other screen, and you've got your, besides the children's work that's now going to make up your art collection, you've got another artwork in your collection by Emery, and we're just going to, it is going to come up on the screen. Would you like to just talk us a bit through this?
Yes, I would. So Emery is someone that I know through media, and she won a competition a year back, and she's a teacher. And it's interesting that you say get to know the artist, because she is an art teacher who has a desire to make art. And the one day she phoned me up and she said, I want to do something for you. And I was like, okay, you can do something for me. What do you want to do? And she says, I want to draw you. And I was like, me? You want to draw me? Okay, you can draw me. And I actually, up until yesterday, refused to have a look at the final product, because I said to her, today when I'm sitting here, I will have a look at the final product. But I did take a sneak yesterday. And she made a drawing of me, and it's beautiful. And
it's fantastic.
I must also say that since then, she's resigned as an art teacher, because she is now a full-time artist.
That's cool.
And I wish her only the best in her journey, and I think she did a remarkable job. Also, seeing yourself like that when someone else draws you, you realize how you can read your own emotions of vulnerability, excitement, holy. I never thought I could look holy until I looked at that picture.
Immortality.
Yes, immortality. Yeah. Almost virginal,
She captures the soul of who you are and has managed to bring that through the work.
I must tell you, I am very encouraged, taken aback, and almost emotional.
Fantastic. I must say, I'm looking forward to seeing seeing her journey, and seeing how she's going to continue to grow. So, to everyone, there's a good artist to also keep watching. To Emery, we're looking forward to seeing how you're going to and what you're going to be doing next. One of the most important things also to consider after purchasing your work, and I know Ilana's going to be as well considering that now that this is going to be hanging on your wall, is how does one frame your particular work? And the frame one chooses can also play a very important role because it can also make and break the work. It also affects how you experience that work. And lastly, a frame is also there in certain cases to protect the work, particularly if you are hanging that work in a public space, or like we've got some of the works in Legonolo studio here, they're actually hanging in a passage and there's a bit of a throughfare. So we're going to cross live now to Chris Sims in his framing studio, who's going to take us through the art of and technique of framing.
Hi there, my name is Chris Sims. I'm a professional picture framer and I've been doing picture framing for 22 years. I have my own business and have had so for about 20 years now, and trust me, when it comes to framing, I've seen just about everything. So I'm here today to chat to you a little bit about the importance of conservation framing, which is basically proper framing which will protect your artwork, particularly investment art, of which we have a lot in South Africa. Let's face it, there's some up-and-coming artists that are doing fantastic work at the moment, and it's our responsibility to ensure that their artwork is preserved for future generations. So what do we do in terms of protecting the artwork? Ideally, we want to introduce an acid-free environment. So I just want to be clear that I'm basically talking about paper artworks. When it comes to framing oil paintings, typically you can frame an oil painting that is on a stretched canvas with simply adding a frame to the outside of the canvas, something that's going to match the artwork and make it look stunning. But when it comes to paper artwork, it's a different kettle of fish altogether. Ideally, we want to use acid-free materials. When it comes to using materials that are not acid-free, this can harm the paper, and you end up with a very brittle paper that can have discoloration, brown marks on it, etc., etc. The brown marks we call foxing, by the way, and this is something that will typically happen over time. So in the first few years of enjoying your picture, you're not going to notice any harmful side effects of poor picture framing. But in the long term, the value of the artwork will be affected. This is obviously going to be problematic. So what should we do to get around that? Basically, we use conservation or museum quality of mount boards, which are always cotton based. It's basically the wood-based materials that cause the problems when it comes to picture framing. Any kind of wood-based material will become acidic over a period of time, whereas a cotton-based material is 100% acid-free in its natural environment and will remain 100% acid-free throughout its lifetime. So when you go to a picture framer and you're looking for advice, always ask for museum quality, cotton core, acid-free mounting boards. Typically, these are unfortunately only available in neutral colors such as white and cream, but at the end of the day, I find that that is what will enhance an artwork more than anything else. When it comes to covering the artwork, I'm talking about the face of the frame itself. Typically, that's going to be a glass cover. Now, glass comes in a variety of different thicknesses. The thickness of the glass is not going to do anything to preserve or conserve the artwork. In most picture framing companies, you'll find that 2mm glass is probably the most common. 3mm is typically used on larger pieces where a sheet size of a 2mm glass is not big enough. However, glass is typically dangerous when it comes to framing investment pieces, because if the glass does break, if the frame does fall off the wall in the middle of the night, what's going to happen is the shards of glass are going to cut into the artwork, and obviously your investment is potentially ruined in the process. So to get around this, one can use perspex. Clear perspex, usually in a 2 or a 3 millimeter thickness, is good. You will find that perspex is a little bit more expensive than glass. However, it is a good replacement for glass, particularly on investment artwork. Now there is another option, which is a museum quality glass, which is also a 2 millimeter glass that basically is an imported product which has UV resistant qualities and is locally available at the moment. However, it is very expensive. It's definitely worth using if you have invested in your artwork though. So ask the question when you go through to a picture framer and see what they say, get a price on it, and you make your own decision as to whether you want to go that route. Here's a tip, just in the home environment, possibly you want to have a look around and check your artwork out. Take a look at the mounting board, particularly on the inside edge of the mounting board. If you see that it's going yellow or brown, you'll probably then know that the mounting board is not an acid-free mount board, and you probably find that there's a little bit of yellowing or brown edge that's bled from the mounting board onto the paper itself. And if that's the case, I would highly recommend going into a professional framer or seeking out an art restorer in order to have a look at this. There are definitely ways of restoring paper artwork, but prevention is always better than cure. Now, there are also times when an artwork should not be reframed. So some investment pieces, it's been easier to identify and verify the pieces when they were left in their original frames. Some examples of this would be Gerald Sokoto and Irma Stern. But at the same time, if the artwork is a paper artwork and it is behind glass, one can still retain the original frame, but definitely take a look at the glass as well as the mounting board in those circumstances. Anyways, I guess you guys have got a little bit of a better idea now in terms of what to ask for if you've invested in art and you'd like to go into a picture framer. Hopefully you've got a little bit more knowledge now than before and you know what to ask for. So thanks very much for watching today. I hope you all have a fantastic day and see you soon.
Thank you, Chris. Some invaluable insights there, and I think something we can all take away with. We do have a question here. When investing in an artist's work, is it advisable to buy more than one artwork from that artist? Yes, if you like the artist. I mean, I started acquiring, and I'm not, a number of Lechonolo's works, many, I think when I first met you, must have been about 10 years, 13 years back almost, and I've added over the years more to my collection. And the reason being, one, I really like the work. I can relate to Lechonolo's work, but for me, it's also been able to see how his work has matured and changed over time, and to hang it in the house, and I theme different rooms and so on with my artworks, and is to then be able to see how he's changed and grown. So there's nothing wrong with, if you like an artist and you can relate to the work, yes, have more than one or two of his or her works in your collection. Mm. I mean, you're never going to limit the number of artworks that your children produce in the same way,
Definitely not. But I mean, I look at what I see around me. I've told Lechonolol already what I have my eyes on, I've reserved a few. In fact, this whole corridor, we'll just...
Actually, that's by design. I design my artwork so that you don't take one. Yeah, you have to take two.
Tricks us.
So, so yeah, it's a privilege. I'm happy that happens. I don't complain.
But it's also... what is important is how Legonolo has hung his work, and as we look down here through the spaces, and Legonolo spoke about the language of art. But there's also a language in terms of how you hang work. You don't need to just equally space it on the wall. You can group certain works together and cluster them. You can have open spaces. So it almost reads as a sentence where you might have a full stop or a comma, giving breathing spaces in how you curate your area.
But it's also you that taught me the other day that on a day where he has time, he literally removes and hangs different artwork just so that he can keep his environment fresh. So, I mean, you're probably one of the first people that I've learned that from, that you actually do that in your home.
Yes, I do. I mean,
So, caught out.
look,
Okay.
I must be honest, Ilana, as I said to you, I mean, I'm my artwork on my children, so I love all my children equally. So I have to give them each an equal space. So,
I think it's such a privilege, though. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So, lockdown has taught us a lot, and we've heard it from the artists, right? And before lockdown, I was going to purchase, and then we were locked down. And it was very sad because my walls were empty, and we couldn't take delivery of anything. So if someone's watching today and they want to do their first purchase, other than clicking on a link or anything like that, what's the first emotion or thing that we can think of before we buy?
What do you relate to? What is your style? I would say to a person, and often I would take people, we're fortunate in South Africa. We've got a number of art fairs in Joburg and Cape Town and art festivals. And unfortunately, this year, we haven't been able to go in. We've been able to experience them online, which has also been fascinating. But what I say to people is, and I often take a number of people through the fairs, and I say to them, leave the credit card, the debit card, and that at home.
Right.
Let's just take you through the fair, the festival, and let's see what you relate to.
See with your eyes,
Experience it. It's like going into a restaurant. You don't have to eat everything off the menu, but you like to look at everything on the menu, in that sense, before you select, I'm going to go for that item. And it's the same way. Go to the festivals, immerse yourself into the culture of our visual arts, and just enjoy it. And Legonolo will tell you, particularly at the art fairs, he's been at some of the art festivals like the Car in Oudtshoorn. You also then get to meet the artist at these fairs and the festivals. And for me, that's it, because sometimes you look at an artwork and you go, I can't relate to that. But when you meet the artist and he takes you on the journey, it opens your eyes completely. So just immerse yourself. Don't be too quick, in too much of a rush to buy the first work. But rather get into it, and then, because I will remember the first artwork I've purchased. You'll always remember the first work. Even though you might acquire many works over time, you're going to remember that first work.
Nice.
Always.
The wine metaphor fits very perfectly here. Going to the wine festival, we have to palate it. I also tell my clients, no, don't buy. Even if I do want them to purchase, I do send them home. Like, let it sink in, let it go into you. Visualize it in your space, because you're going to have this forever. I don't feel comfortable when clients come back after 5 years. No, they want to sell it now. They're no longer relating with it. So relating with the piece is quite important. It's very important. With the artist as well, the piece and the language.
And make sure, I know, Lana, we've been speaking, you've got a few empty walls, so I got very excited in our discussion. But also make sure the work fits into your house.
Yeah.
I mean,
3 meters.
The house that you just showed me now, I'm like, does my work fit there?
I mean, I had a client.
French style. Whoa.
We had a client that acquired a huge artwork, and sometimes within an open space, like a studio or a gallery, the work might look a bit smaller. And this particular work was about 3 meters in length.
I just said that because I knew you were going to say that. That's why I'm laughing so much.
And I said to the client, are you sure the work's going to fit in? I mean, never mind how we were going to get it through the door, and we managed that. And after a whole day of managed to jiggle this work through the door,
They now have a monstrosity.
the client then phoned me back and said, we have a problem, Paul. The wall's too small.
Oh, dear.
So either have to build another room or get rid of the
Yes,
work.
build the room. Just build the room.
So it's
Yeah.
also, and I think, yeah.
I want to commend you on something as well. So I saw your pick for 2020, and it was beautiful also for me to experience art in that way. It was quicker because I'm not walking through an entire gallery. It's not taking up too much of my time, you know, as someone who's quite impatient with art. And I got to see a variety, you know. And even though it was your selection, I got to see things that you're recommending for all of us. So it was really beautiful to see the variety and really enjoyed that. Yeah.
And it's also, you know, as you said, it's my selection. So people can give their comments. They can, and people have the right to disagree because that's art. Art
Yes.
is personal in that sense. You know,
Or make your own suggestions.
or make your own suggestions. And go out and do your homework and look for other artists to say, but maybe, Paul, you should have included this one or that into it, you know? I mean, I'm going to be looking at Marie and looking at what she's going to be doing in years.
Emery.
Emery.
Emery
Excuse me,
Gieselbach.
Emery. I'm going to be looking at her.
Beautiful
But look,
name.
I am wary of time. So unfortunately, we are going to have to wrap it up here this morning. So really just, you know, I think the major key takeout that I can really share with, you know, everyone this morning, what we have is immerse yourself into the industry. Get to meet the artist. If you can, attend the open studio days, as recently there was at Ellis House, and I think they probably would happen once a quarter and things like that. And go through and spend time meeting the artist. I know we're going to spend the rest of the day here in Lechanolo space, further exploring the
Definitely.
works. So I'd really like to just say a special thanks to my guests today, to Ilana Africa Bredenkamp and to Lechanolo Mashaba. So Ilana, any final thoughts from yourself?
Thank you for the opportunity to even be part of this and also for giving a final thought. I think the one thing that I take from today is that we have to support local wine, make suggestions to yourself. You know, if you support local, you can support your local community by buying local. If you buy fruit that's local, you're supplying and supporting your local community. Think of birthday gifts. Imagine you could commission something for someone special in your life. So support local and thank you. Yeah.
Thank
For
you.
me, it's as you know, I have these techniques. You know, artists collaborate with other people. You know,
Yes.
speaking of local, I collaborate with other people who are gonna design dresses and things like that. So these are some of the things that we think about as artists, to go out there and try something that is different. So you purchasing my work, I'm going to be able to collaborate with other people who are doing other techniques, like these ideas we were talking about right now. You know, I'll be collaborating with other people, creating another industry, you know, textile, whether it's textile, whether it's just fashion or just utensils that you use at home. So that's one of the things I like to add up.
Thank you so much. And to everyone that joined us live this morning, a big thank you. I look forward to seeing you next week, Thursday, the 10th of December at 11 o'clock. And it will be our fourth and final episode in investing in the visual arts. So please do join us on Absa Artworks. And our episode next week will again be packed with a number of exciting guests, both from the visual arts sector as well as a leading personality, as they share their invaluable insights with us and their journey through the visual arts.